Hello, welcome to another episode of the Crafts Couch Pod. I had a week off because I was in Hawaii, enjoying the sun, the sand, whales breaching right next to the boat. It was quite magical. And I'm back in action and have some interesting stories to share around boundaries with clients. And it's been such a great learning lesson in general for me in my business as well as for the clients, because when we can view our choices and our behavior from a non-judgmental place, the awareness can drop in. So I'll get into all that. But first, I want to take care of a little bit of housekeeping, which is my SPACIOUS mastermind. Holy cow. It is beyond magical. For folks that don't know, currently I'm running a beta group, which means a test group, so to speak, of 7 folks, and they are in a WhatsApp group. So it's similar to Voxer, where it's a text and voice note container only. So there actually are no really specific calls, like group coaching calls. And what I'm loving about it is the ability to just create really organically and follow the energy. So it's really cool for the clients because they can address stuff right when stuff is coming up. It's really amazing for me and how I work because I love to respond to energy. So it's constantly giving me something to respond to. And so it's this amazing snowball momentum effect that gets going and opens up all these other awarenesses, clarity, topics. I mean, you name it, we have talked about it in there. And really the whole premise of the mastermind I got from my personal experience with burnout. I talked a little bit about it on here and how I was really requiring space and just time away from consuming. I love to learn. And I was recognizing that sometimes when you are consuming a lot, it is much more challenging to then hear your inner knowing, your intuition. And so as I started to intentionally take space in my mind, like having some quiet moments, periods of time, more meditation, less consumption, clearing out my calendar, creating more space in my calendar, stuff is able to drop in, right? Because it's like if we don't have space, then the intuitive hits can't really drop in very clearly. They're already subtle, like a whisper. So if we have a lot going on and are distracted, or even our space is cluttered, then that can all impact that. So that's really where we started with the lens of that container, in that I'm facilitating folks back to what they're aware of with whatever topics are coming up. So it could be around relationships, it could be around money, it could be around your business, right? It's all relevant because your ability to hear your intuitive knowing affects it all. So we are currently about to start our last week of the beta group, and I am taking, as of right now, I'm taking applications for the full program. We're starting next week, March 13th. So you still have time to apply. I would encourage you not to wait. If it's pinging you, I would jump on it because due to the nature of the container, it's going to remain on the smaller side, right? In order for me to be fully present and it not to be overwhelming for folks, there's going to be limited spots. So if it pings, I would highly encourage you because once it's full, it'll be about 3 months until there's a potential opening, right? So it's like people are committing to at least 3 months and then they will get first dibs if they would like to continue longer before I'm going to let new folks in. So if it pings, I'm telling you, jump in. It is literally, I'm just so excited about it. I adore it. I love it. I love how fluid it is. It's really matching my energy right now. And the folks in there are just so magical. And a few of them have already said, yes, I'm in for the next round. I also have new folks that want to join the next round. So there's a lot of energy there, a lot of action. So if it calls, I'd love to have you in. So that is all about spacious. So let's get back to the topic at hand and what I just dropped, the bomb I dropped before I moved on to spacious, which is when you judge your behavior, you cannot allow awareness in. So if you are going into judgment about how you're handling something, what often happens then is that feels pretty crappy. It feels almost maybe intolerable depending on the level of shame. And if we're not conscious to this, we can then project that out. We project it out onto the situation. And this is where we can, I want to say like sneakily become the victim to our reality. Now, victim just means the world is happening to me. It's not a bad word. It just means I'm functioning from the state of the world is happening to me. Now, I get that as we are healing and transforming, we take more and more self-accountability, self-responsibility for how our reality is showing up, right? Knowing that we don't have control over everything, of course. However, how we respond is fully on us. And it's funny because even in my own personal work where I am very aware of this and have done a lot of work around this, sometimes there are still just little small sneaky ways where I am blaming things on my outside reality or wanting the outside reality to shift rather than me internally shifting. So the process of what happens is people tend to maybe unconsciously even judge themselves about choices they're making, shame themselves, their nervous system gets dysregulated. That is intolerable. And so then it is easier and more tolerable to point the finger outside of ourselves a bit, even if it's like, oh, this person was behaving a certain way and this is why I'm mad, or this situation occurred and this affected my emotional state, right? But again, if we're looking at it from the lens of I have full autonomy over how I respond, then ultimately what happens outside of me is irrelevant. Yes, we can acknowledge certain things could be objectively more stressful than others. And I want to be in full allowance of how I'm showing up. So if I do get stressed out, that's okay, right? When I come to allowance with it, like I'm angry at a certain situation, that allows me to move through it much faster. So what did I mean by if we're judging how we're behaving, then we can't hear our awareness? If we are judging how we are behaving, we are coming to conclusion. We are saying, oh, this is terrible. Why am I like this way? And that's not really a question. It's more of a conclusion. I've already decided I'm wrong, right? And so I'm already focused on all of that. And the way our brains work is that it will reflect back to us exactly what we have concluded. So your beliefs, your points of view, whatever you have decided, your mind is going to reflect that back to you. Now, you're like, come on, Janine. I mean, I'm seeing what I'm seeing. This is clear, my reality. I think I'm clear on what's happening. Your brain is really skilled at being able to delete, distort, generalize, just change the information around the data that's coming in just enough so that it feels copacetic with your point of view, right? Because if it was so overtly different, then there is some dissonance that doesn't feel good, right? And so it's very easy for us to kind of manipulate the data in that way. And so when I say if you're in judgment, you can't hear your awareness, I mean you are not privy to what is truly happening. Total clarity. What is your inner being saying? What is your intuition saying? Right? Because all of that, as I mentioned earlier, it's like a whisper, right? It's really subtle, it's clear, it's neutral, it's not charged, right? And it just tends to be of a nature of what is. But if you are shaming yourself, you are dysregulating your nervous system, quite literally. Your thoughts dysregulate your nervous system. How amazing is that? That if you are in a vibrational frequency of being really stressed out, right? You're going to magnetize more thoughts that way, and then your nervous system is going to match, and it's just whole cycle. So what can give you total clarity is to look at your choices from a place of curiosity. That's just interesting what I'm choosing. This is something that I was actually just talking to my beta folks this week, was having more levity, lightness in how they are perceiving what's going on or their choices. Could they just have some fun with it, right? We tend to take this all so seriously, and that just creates a lot of contraction in our body. And so I was encouraging them to lower the stakes, not make this all serious. And what if everything they chose was just interesting? It was just interesting. It wasn't wrong. It wasn't right. It was just a choice. And when we come from that place, from as free from judgment as possible, then there's so much clarity that drops in. So much clarity. So the reason I kind of started this episode with that is because it is relevant to the boundaries recently I was setting with clients. So it was funny because it came up with a couple different instances. So I thought, okay, this is interesting. Some clarity, some opportunities are being presented for folks to really look at what they're choosing. So oftentimes I will get folks that request one of two things. Either A, their session pack has expired or is about to expire and they're wanting an extension, or B, I've run a sale and they missed it. And those are two that I hold pretty firmly with. So one of them being the session packs, and basically folks can buy one-on-one sessions from me, and they are good for a year. So folks have a year to use. Maybe they'll buy 3, 6, or 9 sessions, and they have a year to use it. Now, in choosing this, they're fully autonomous to schedule when they want, reschedule if they need, right? And they plan when to utilize it, right? So it is self-driven. This is to encourage self-autonomy, right? That it's self-driven, because I have other packages where folks can be on my calendar bi-weekly, so to speak, or have kind of a set time frame. So this is a little different in that as the client, you choose, right? And so there have been some times where folks just do some interesting things with it, where maybe they didn't use it at all, or they used one very early on and then follow up with me 6 months or 3 months after it's expired. Hey, I want to use my sessions. It's like, well, unfortunately, they are expired. Kind of this is what we discussed in the beginning. And it's funny because oftentimes when folks are reaching out to me, their email is something to the effect of, my life was just crazy. All this stuff was happening and I was unable to schedule. And it's interesting in that the phrasing lends itself towards saying, well, unfortunately, I couldn't do anything about it. Life was happening to me. And so I need you to kind of shift and be flexible with me because I didn't choose something. And again, this is like the very subtle victim stance, because on one hand, we could say, well, certainly, I can appreciate stuff comes up. Absolutely. And this is an entire year frame where you can be autonomous and reach out, communicate, right? Or schedule, or somewhere in there. And so if we are constantly looking at it from, well, you need to shift, like the outside world needs to shift for me, then we are constantly at effect. We're constantly at effect in life and we'll be constantly miserable. Rather than taking accountability, responsibility for what we've chosen, which is just interesting. Maybe, it's common for folks to go into some shame. Oh, I spent this money and then I didn't use it. Well, it's like, it's just interesting, right? What if that money energetic exchange actually created something for you? What if this is clarifying to you all the ways you do leak your money, right? Or do leak your energy, or don't prioritize you? I mean, that's really what it comes down to quite frequently. Now, with these one-on-one session packs, I do appreciate that life comes up and things come up. So if there's some wiggle room, like, hey, you need a 1 or 2 week extension, I get that, right? Or you're sick, you need to reschedule, I get that. It's the ones where it's like, I need months more to go, although I've already had a year, or I haven't used it at all, and it's way beyond that. I'm noticing the pattern. And so for me, I hold the boundary and say, no, unfortunately, it is expired. I wonder what you're aware of with this, right? Because it's a opportunity for folks to look at what are they choosing if they desire, right? Sometimes they make me wrong for it, and I've had that before. And other times I've had them say, hey, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for holding that boundary, because I can look at where I'm not prioritizing me, where I just, let other people go first before I ever do. And this is another time where I've done that. So thank you for showing me that. Because if I didn't set the boundary, then I allow their unconscious behavior to continue, right? It's the kind of classic enabling, so to speak. So although I understand, or I hear you, like, life was hard this year, I get it. And what are we choosing here? So this has been similar also with sales, like when I run deals. And I get it's hard to keep up with all that stuff, right? And the sales are put in an email and they're put on social IG stories and whatnot. And you got a lot going on, right? Maybe you're not catching everything and you're not tracking everything, right? Because it's like we're bombarded with so much information. And ultimately, all I can do is make it as clear as possible, and then it's on the person to choose. And so this is another common one that I've had recently where folks have said the next day after it's expired, oh my gosh, I missed the sale, like the code isn't working. Kind of, can you cut me a break? And I will say, again, no, because it was clear the timing it was ending. It was posted in multiple places. And at some point, you are empowered to choose. And if you didn't come from a scarcity mindset that you could only buy it if there was the discount there, what would you choose? And where else are you restricting yourself because it's not on sale? Or where else have you let possibilities that are pinging you pass you by, that you stood in the freeze response a little too long, right? Because that is something common that happens for folks. Is what I find is the bulk of the folks that follow me and clients I work with is they pick or they choose a little late. So there's kind of this sweet spot in following our intuition, and it's right when the fruit is ripe. Like, when the avocado is ripe, like perfect for a couple hours, right? And there's lots of times before it where it's kind of hard and it's not that tasty, or it turns black and it's gross. And a lot of people tend to wait till it turns black. Why? Because they're in a freeze mode. They're in a freeze mode of A, maybe spending money, or B, being aware of what the change is going to create, what the choice is going to create, right? This choice is going to have massive impact on my life. And that's a lot of awareness and, oh my God, and then people freeze. So I find the bulk of people tend to be that way. For me, I am someone that leans towards picking the avocado a little too ripe. Like, it's hard, it's like almost there, but it's just it's not as sweet as it could be. So that's my focus, is to relax and wait a little bit more, because I'm one to jump. I'm leap, 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 leap. And so who are you when you're hearing this? Are you the one that tends to jump too early, or do you tend to jump too late? And so this is what I was seeing with some of the folks that were, saying, hey, I didn't notice the deal. And again, I'll sometimes hear something to the effect of, oh, well, I didn't see that it ended at this specific time, so maybe you could make it more clear, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'll show them, hey, I actually said here, here, and here where the exact time is that it was ending. So it's just like things like that. Well, people will look for reasons outside of themselves as to why they didn't choose, not looking inward. For what purpose did I not choose that? And that will give you the most clarity is when you can look inward and ask yourself, for what purpose am I choosing this? Now, I say this all the time, and it bears repeating until people get it, which will be forever, is in order to function from this place, you need to view it from a lens of non-judgment. Because if you're coming to the conclusion of, oh my God, I'm such a mess, and like, of course, there I go and let another possibility go again, you're not going to have the change, the learning experience, the expansion from this possibility. Versus, all right, I let a sale go again. I let an opportunity. I wonder where else I leak energy from. Do I still want to choose this thing? It feels light still. Okay, what would an abundant person choose? They would choose it. Okay, is it for now or for later? Ooh, it's for now. Okay, I'm going to go for it. Right? That is what an empowered person would choose. And you can see in those questions, there was no shaming. There was no judgment, right? It was like, what could I choose here? So I'm wondering, where in your life are you wanting the outside reality to change for you? Because the thing is, you've heard it before, wherever you go, there you are, right? You are bringing your perspectives, your points of view with you. And so however you are perceiving life, it will have a similar flavor, whether you are on vacation, whether you are at home, whether you are with friends or with family, right? You are perceiving it all through the same lens. So what's going to give you the greatest change is to look internally with how you are perceiving something. And when you are out of judgment with it, the clarity can come through because then there's no heaviness or contraction around it. Now, if you still find yourself getting a little stuck with your choices, start to get playful with it. Like, oh my God, I just love always picking that avocado when it is so black and gross and mushy. Like, how much can I love picking so late? How much can I love letting all these opportunities pass me by? I wonder what other possibilities I'll let go today. Like, you could be silly with it, like be childlike, kind of dramatic in the opposite end, in service of shaking loose of the judgment. Right? That's kind of the whole point of that. Like, I don't want you to be laughing at yourself to shame yourself. I want you to laugh about it again, to shake loose of the death grip that judgment has. Because judgment will never create greater. Judgment activates your nervous system. It puts you into an irritable state, which means you are going to show up in a not so helpful way with others, right? And you're not going to hear your intuition and your inner knowing. So judgment truly is a destroyer. It's a destroyer of your body. It's a destroyer of your creativity, of your business, of the planet, of your relationships, like all the things. So if I can offer you the takeaway today, what would it take to get out of judgment? What would it take to see your choices as just interesting? Because truly, that's all it is. All right, y'all. Till next time.